Hey guys, Marshall back with you again, and we're going to continue on now. We've got our server pretty much set up, ready to go. There's a couple more configuration options that we're going to configure after we got our module up and running, or not running, but up on it. So we're gonna just leave this server for now, and we're gonna start work on our development environment where we actually use our tool set and have our environment ready to create our persistent world. Now, like I said in the beginning, I'm not going to teach you how to use the tool set. It's up to you to create your own persistent world. What I will do is create just a little temp or a little test module for us, and I'll use one of the NWN2 Legends plugins to show you some content and a hack pack and things like that, and how we use it, especially when it comes to publishing. Now, remember when we started, I said that the order of things was not important, and that is the case until now. Now things in the development environment become a little bit more important in the order in which we do things. So you're going to want to make sure that if something's not gone right, there's a very good chance that you may have to start over because something may have not gone in the correct order. And if it doesn't, you're going to cause yourself all kinds of grief. This is especially true if you have user access control on your Windows 7 PC. If you have that running, like I do here, that can cause you all kinds of headaches. So be very careful and follow closely if you're not familiar with the pitfalls and the how to do it. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you these folders. And what these folders are is this one over here on the right. This is that share folder on our Windows XP professional box. I just actually opened it up. I just went start and then type // cal xp01, or in your case, if you don't have DNS, the IP address and then /NWN, and that gets me this folder. As you can see, here's my Dropbox, and here's my modules, here's my hack folder. So I can easily now copy files from my Windows 7 machine, development machine, to my server. So I just throw files in over here, and we're good to go. On this side here, you have a local folder on my C drive. And the full path is just c:/temp /NWN2. Now this is where we're going to what we call stage our files. This is where we basically publish files from the tool set, we stage them here, and then we copy them from here to our server. Okay, so just to reiterate that, just to make sure you got it, especially for anyone who has never done this before. You are going to develop in NWN2, and we're going to have a folder for that development. We're going to stage our files from here into here, and then we're going to copy our staged files from here over to our server. This is especially important if we have UAC running, because if we don't do it this way, well, there's other ways, but this is the easiest way. Now, in here, we're going to have two. I'll show you what this setup is in a moment, but we're going to have two more folders in here, and the toolset's going to create them for us. The first folder is going to be what's called the client folder. That client folder is the folder of files that we're going to put in our Dropbox. Those are the files that we're going to have our players download automatically when they connect to our server. They're going to download our hack pack, our walk mesh files, things like that. They're going to download. We're going to put those in our Dropbox. The second folder here is going to be called server. The server folder is going to hold all of the files that we're going to actually put on our server, our Windows XP machine. And there are going to be things like our modules. There are going to be things like the hack packs as well, because the hack packs not only have to live on the player's computer, but they also have to live on the server, and things like that. If we have a custom talk table, stuff like that that we're going to want on the server. Okay. So those are the two folders, and we're going to show you how all of that gets set up and created. The next thing I want to show you, now this isn't a requirement for running an NWN2 persistent world. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to create some content in this little test module. And what that content is going to be, I'm going to use the Legends Info plugin just so that my module has some scripts and a hack pack and a few things like that in it, so we can demonstrate, hey, this actually has stuff in it, and I can see how this works. So this here is just the installer for the Legends Info plugin. So I'm going to install this first. You don't need to do this unless you're planning on using Legends plugins. If you're going to use Legends plugins, then you're probably familiar with my website and you know all about them. But the newest versions, well, at the time this video was created, is versions 1.8. There'll be these setup.msis, or you can actually use, each kit comes with the files. But because I'm using UAC, I can't just install this just by double clicking on it. If I double click on this, what's going to happen is it's going to install in my users directory, but my users directory isn't the directory we're going to use when we run this. Go away. One sec, I'm just being interrupted. Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, so I'll continue with the install of the Legends Info plugin. You don't want to have toolset open when you're installing your plugins, so make sure it's closed. And what I'm going to do, as I was saying, is I can't run this as my regular user that I'm logged in here with, because what this will do is it'll install the hack pack file and whatnot in my documents for this user, which I don't run the toolset as. So if you're using UAC and you can turn it off, do that. If you're using UAC and you know what you're doing with this stuff, then this will make sense to you. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to run this by double clicking on it. Again, I would if I ran NWN2 toolset as the same account, but what I do is I right click on this and I say run as administrator, and I run my toolset as the administrator because there's things that I need elevator privileges when I'm making my modules, so I do run that as administrator. However, I need to run this as administrator too, and you can't do that way. So you have to do it a different way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the command prompt as administrator, and I'm going to log in with an elevated account. Oops. So this little command prompt here is an elevated prompt. So I'm going to go to where my little MSI is, and I'm going to run MSI exec /I quotes setup.msi, and I'm going to run it this way. So again, that's only if you're running your toolset and your game as the administrator, because you need elevator privileges for whatever reasons. You need to install your plugins that way too, as administrator. If you don't run these as administrator, you just double click on them and run them as your normal account, then you can just double click this as well and install it the normal way. So that's why we did that. So I'm going to hit next. And again, this has nothing to do with the persistent world. This is just because I want to use the Legends plugins in this demo. So I'm just going to install this info plugin. I'll just take a couple seconds and then finish. And that's it. The info plugin is now installed. So I don't need anything else there. And so yeah, we're going to go ahead now and close this and open up the toolset. So I'm going to right click, run as administrator. Again, you don't have to do this if you don't use UAC. So we'll let the toolset fire up, and we're going to create our persistent world. We're going to assume we don't have anything created yet. This is a brand new persistent world. And we're also going to assume we've never run this toolset before either. We're going to actually set it up with some plugins and things. Well, not some plugins because I've already got some plugins on here, but we're going to set some configuration options on here so that we can prepare for our persistent world. So the first thing we're going to do is go into View and Options, and we want to make sure that we load all of our plugins. Now, remember when we were looking at this, we said we were going to have a client folder here and a server folder. The client folder was going to contain the files that we're going to put in our Dropbox, and the server folder was the folder we're going to put all of our server files in. That's where you configure that right here. It defaults to this, but we're not going to use this. We're just going to go temp NWN2, and we're going to go client. And we're going to change this to /temp /NWN2 /server, like that. Okay. Then we're going to turn off this autosave. We don't need that, so set that to false. And we're going to go in here to graphics, and we're going to change this far plane to 1000 so we can actually see what we're doing. And you can modify whatever other options you like. So then once you do that, you click OK, and now we're ready to move on. So we've got that configured. Now if we look back here, we'll notice that our client and server folders were created for us automatically. So the toolset is now going to start using these two folders to stage the files that we need to hand over to our server and the files that we're going to hand over to our players. So that becomes important. We're going to use that a lot when we're publishing. So the next thing we want to do is close the toolset. When you make changes like that, you want to make sure you close and reopen the toolset, because of course we want to actually load all of our plugins. And fire it up again. And now our plugins will load. Now I've got a few other plugins running here, so you're going to see a few more. I would highly suggest looking at the vault for other plugins to make your life easier in the toolset, but again, this is about making a persistent world, not so much the toolset how to. So we've got that done, and we're ready to create our module. So the first thing we want to do is save our module. We want to save it in a folder that we're going to keep our development work in. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go save directory. We're not going to use the .mod method. Save directory, you always want to use this. The .mod method is buggy at best. Now I'm going to call this my module. You can call it whatever, as long as this does not match the folder on your server. Because if this matches the folder on your server, that's when you're going to run into problems. So we're going to call it my module. If you remember, the one on the server was called my server. Click OK. It'll warn you that you don't have a valid start location. That's okay. Save it anyway. And you'll get a little error down here saying bad module start location. That's not a concern. So we save that, and we can see right here we're now working in my module. Now the next thing we're going to do is put some content in here. We actually want a persistent world so that we can test. We want to log into something. So as I was saying before, one thing we're going to do is we're going to have the Legends Info plugin in here. So I'm going to import the resources for that, and I keep that in a file right here. And OK, and then you can see scripts for the info plugin. I'm not going to go through how the Legends plugins works. There are plenty of videos on YouTube about how to install and use the Legends info plugin. So you're going to kind of see me blow through this part real quick about configuring this info plugin. Again, if you want to learn more about it, go ahead and look at the YouTube videos on how to use these plugins. So the next thing I want to do is have an area. I want to have an area in my module. So we're going to go new area, and we're just going to call it my starting area. Finish. And this is where our little start location is going to be. If you don't see this here, just click set start location and click on the ground, and you'll get this. So this is where our players will begin playing on our server. Of course, not terribly exciting, just a grassy field, but that's good enough for this test. Again, this is where you're going to want to start using your tool set and put in your quests and your towns and villages and your areas and all that stuff. You go ahead and do that. But for this demo, we're just gonna leave it at that. So now that we've got that, we're going to close it. Now let's just pretend that we've created a nice starting area. What we have to do for our areas is bake them. Bake them generates the walk mesh that has to get downloaded to a player's computer. So we're going to do that by going File, Bake All Areas. If we were just adding one area, we'd just keep that area open and just bake the current area rather than bake all areas. You only have to bake your areas if you modify the terrain. So we've got our starting area here, and that takes care of that. Next thing we're going to do is fire up our master configurator for our Legends plugin. Now, as you can see, this is the Legends master configurator for our plugin that we're going to use, and we're going to turn the info plugin on. We're going to update our module scripts. Again, this is all documented in the other videos. We're going to connect to our database. Now remember, our database server, CalXP01, or again, in your case, you could use the IP address. 3306 is MySQL's default TCP port. Our database name is NWN2. The user is NWN2 user, and our password is NWN2 password that we created when we installed MySQL. We'll hit test connect, and successful. So we're able to connect to our MySQL database. Then we're going to hit finish. So that takes care of that. Oh, and we want to make sure that we do an update all area scripts. And that finishes that. And then we're going to want to load our info plugin. Again, I'm not going to go through what all this means. Go and review the info plugins videos for it. I'm just using it for content, really, just to show how this works. Now, one thing that the info plugin does is it creates a couple of tables in your database. So if we pull up our SQL YOG here, and we right click here and we refresh our object browser, you'll notice our little NWN2 database now has a couple of tables in it. That's what the info plugin did when we're in the tool set. It actually modified and put some information in our database for us. So that's one of the things that our plugins does, is it talks to the database to be able to manipulate the information that's in there. So that's what that is, and now we're going to compile all of our scripts, and we should not get any errors. Good. So all of our scripts are compiled, and now we'll save our module, and we're ready to go. So let's just say we have a couple of areas, we got some monsters and some quests and stuff written in here, and we've used a few plugins to do that. And now we want to try our module out. We want to try our persistent world out and see what it's like. This is where things get a little interesting. Now what we want to do is we got to get our hackpack file, because the Legends info plugin does use a hackpack file. If we look at our module properties, we'll see a leg_info hackpack. We've got to get that off of this computer, or copied off of this computer onto our server. We've got to get the module itself over to our server, and we've got to get the hackpack and our walk mesh files over to the players. So to do that, we're going to do what we call publish, and we have a handy built-in system for this called shared content. These three buttons will take care of all of it for us, and each of these take a little bit of understanding on what they're for and how they work. The middle one you don't use very often. You'll only ever use this one really once, and this one is to configure your module to tell players where they can get your files. So remember, we created a Dropbox account so we can store our files like our hackpack and stuff there. This option here simply tells the module where those players can get those files. So that's the first thing we're going to do. We're going to configure manage download servers. And as you can see, it's a very straightforward little box. All it's got is it's got a base URL, and it says replace with your server, which is exactly what we're going to do. Now, in order to do this, we're going to have to go back to our Neverwinter Nights 2 server, and remember in our previous video when we talked about the Dropbox folder and the public folder, and how any files that we put here are available to the public. Well, that's true, and this is how this works. We're going to need to find out what the URL is for the files that are going to be in here. And the easiest way to do that is to right click on this little how to use public folder, select Dropbox, and select copy public link. You copy that public link, you come back to your tool set, you double click on this, replace it all, and Control V to paste. And it'll paste the entire URL of that how to use the public folder file. Of course, we are only interested in the folder itself. We're not interested in just this file, so we'll just get rid of this part. I'm just going to backspace this out. Now be careful the buttons you press here. You don't want to be pressing add. You don't want to be clicking away, because this is really, really finicky. If you don't do this exactly like I'm doing it here, this is going to mess up. So be very careful not to be pressing any buttons or mousing away and clicking over here, because it can cause problems. Also get rid of the S, because NWN2 doesn't understand SSL. So we have this path now. So all we did was we backspaced up the how to use part, and right up to that backslash is what we want. So this is the URL for this is where all of our files are going to get stored, this URL here. So we can hit enter, and that's it. This screen is done. We never have to come back to this again unless we change Dropbox accounts or we want to start storing our files somewhere else. So that's all we need there. We click close. The only other two options in shared content we need are prepare downloadable files and prepare game server files. Now, they didn't name these very well, because a lot of people are confused by how these work. In a nutshell, remember our two folders here. We have a client folder and a server folder. Client folder is where we're gonna stage all of our Dropbox files, and server folder is where we're gonna stage all the files that need to go on the server. So client, server. You can correlate that to these two buttons. This one here is the client staging. This one here is the server staging. So the first thing we're going to do is client staging. Now what's important to know is that you don't have to do this all the time. You don't, like, each time you make a change to your persistent world, you don't need to actually do this, and I'll tell you the times that you do. So we're going to click on it. You need to use this when you change the terrain of an area and you have to rebake it. You have to use this when you want to publish. If you add or change a hack pack, you have to use this to republish it. If you add a brand new area to your persistent world, you have to use this to republish it. If, and in our case right now, we're doing a brand new module, so of course we have to republish or publish with this. So the first thing you're going to have to do is notice that most of this stuff doesn't work. The estimated time and the calculating and all that, this is broken severely. Just ignore everything. The only important things that are of any use on this screen are the skipping of your hackpack files. So let's say you've added an area to your persistent world. You've already published and now you want to expand, and you've added a brand new area to your persistent world, and you need to publish it to the clients, to your players. You know that the hack packs haven't changed, so you can skip your hack packs, because this thing can take a really long time, especially if you've got a lot of really big hack packs. So you can skip hack packs that you know haven't changed if you're just adding a couple of new areas. Because this is the very first time we're running this, we know everything is brand new. My starting area is brand new, our leg info hack pack is brand new, so we need this to scan everything. So we're not going to check that. So we're going to hit the scan button. It's telling me now that it's going to update 3 files. This is oftentimes a little confusing. Don't really pay any attention to it, just as long as it's going to update something when you know there's a change. The next button you press is stage, and it'll stage your starting area, walk mesh file, your hack pack, and there's another Legends info file that it's going to stage. These bars, these progress bars, never work. These numbers are the time and stuff is rarely ever right. What you're really looking for is the word complete right here. Once you see that, you know it's done. This bar will never actually finish. So as long as that says complete, you're done. So click done. That's it. Scan, stage, done. That's all you have to do. You only have to do that whenever you change the terrain. So if I create a new hill in an area and I have to rebake, that's when you use that. Now first, what we'll do right away here is we'll come back to our little folders. We haven't done the staging of the server files yet. We've just done the staging for the client files. So when we look in here, we're going to see some files. And look, those are the 3 files that it staged for us. Now remember, the client is where we want to put our files in our Dropbox account. So we'll bring up our other file here, or our other folder. Now this is our shared folder on our server, and our Dropbox folder is in here, and our public. And what we're going to do is we're going to take these 3 staged files, and we're going to copy them over here. Done. Now our files are available to the public. They are now on our Dropbox account and being synchronized right now. So that's done. Now again, anytime that I change an area, add an area, change a hack pack, add a hack pack, I restage, and then I'll grab any of the changed files here and I'll copy them over to my public Dropbox folder on the server. And that's done. So then we'll go back and we'll go back to our main shared folder. The next part we're going to do is stage our server files. So these are the files, either the private files or module or scripts, all that stuff, or blueprints and things that need to go over to the server so the server can actually run the module. That's the next part. So we go over to File, Shared Content. This one is Client. This one is the Configure Dropbox. This is our server staging. So we click that and hit Stage. Now, I expected this, and you may have seen this. This is a bug, and I wanted to show you what not doing things in the right order can cause. I hit Stage, but there were some errors. If I click Yes to see these errors, I'm going to see this. Can't transfer these 2 files because it's looking for them in the temp0 folder, and the temp0 folder doesn't exist. So this is like a really dumb bug in Neverwinter Nights 2. Don't worry about it. What you have to do, and it's just for this one time because this is a brand new module, just save your module, close the tool set. I always like to save a couple of times. Reload, rerun it again. There will be files in here now. You don't want to copy them yet because it's missing a couple and they're important. So make sure you do this. I could have just closed right there on the spot and just reopened. And I don't have to do that every time I stage. It's just because it was a new module. I'll go in Open Directory and I'll come down to Modules and I'll open my module. Now I'm back to where I was. If I just run this again, share content, prepare server files, and I hit Stage, it completes successfully. The error doesn't appear, and those 2 files that it was looking for are there now. So again, now I can go ahead and I can make changes, I can do whatever I want, and then I can come back here and I can stage again and again, and it'll be fine from now on. So that's the staging. Now if I look in my server staging folder, I'm going to see this stuff. And just so you know, this files.txt file, this gives you a list. I'm just going to bring it over here. This gives you a list of all the files that it staged, and it just keeps adding to this file. And what it does is every time you run it, it creates a blank line, so you know which ones are the latest files. You should know that automatically anyway because you're developing it, but it's there to help you. Again, same with this. Now, on your server, the staging system knows that you're going to need files that the module uses put over on your server. And the most important one, of course, is your main modules one. And it knows your module is called My Module. And here are all your module resources. Okay, this is where your scripts are, your compile scripts, and your module info, your built-in journal, all the factions and things like that, and your area information too. All of this stuff needs to go over to your server. So again, we'll open up our, whoops, wrong one. We'll open up this, and this goes into your modules directory. Notice my module, my server. We're going to go and actually copy all of this over here. Again, we want our server name, our server folder, and our one on our local computer is not the same. Very important. Don't make it the same. You'll cause yourself headaches. So that's the modules part. And go back here. The next thing we're going to have to copy over is our hack pack. So it put our hack pack in here. We'll open up the hack over on the server and copy that over. That's done. And if we happen to have a custom talk table, we would have a talk table file in here that we would copy over to, but we don't for this one, so we don't need to do anything there. And that's it. We are now finished staging our server, our persistent world. Our server, it could actually be fired up right now, but we're not done yet. We're going to do a little bit more. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to end the video here because this went on longer than I thought, so I may have to cut this one in two. So I'm going to end this video here and start a new clip, so I'll be right back.